This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Sean Cole, and welcome to what has become the 2017 People's Choice Awards for simulation, that is the software side of things. This all began a little over a month ago when I did a Sim Tunnel episode that turned out to be a total train wreck. There are comments in the chat during that live show, people like, Sean, did you think this all the way through? And no, I hadn't. And at the time, what I was trying to do was get your thoughts on what aspects of each sim was done best by each sim. So for example, who had the best graphics specifically, who had the best physics, sounds, all the way through. We broke things down in the end to 38 categories. And just imagine if you were to take each best part of the simulation from each company, combined it into what we called Sim Pizza, taking a slice of pie from each type, each flavor of pizza that you like, putting it together for the ultimate pizza. In this case, putting it all together for the ultimate simulation. So during that show, it was a train wreck, and there was no way for me to keep score adequately, so we changed gears into defining the categories. And as I said, we broke things down to 38 categories. I put it all in a poll, I put it up on the show, and nearly 470 people gave their votes on all 38 answers. I think 435 people, so only 35 people didn't answer every question. The other thing that was really great before we get to the results and build our perfect sim pizza is the responses I got. I looked through very carefully looking for like fanboy answers, somebody who just clicked one sim all the way down the list or something like that. And much to my amazement, the results were beautiful. The results were people could tell. You could tell by the answers that the same person would answer different sims all the way down the list. And by looking at those results, I really feel that after 470 of us and such honest answering, that we really had more than just a poll. We had the people's choice. This is our opinion on what makes the best sim and what sim does each part of sim racing best. So it is going to be a little bit of a long show because we do have 38 categories to cover, but what I am going to do is tell you the category, tell you who won and by how much, and you'll get a good idea of what the perfect sim would be from your votes really on the perfect sim. So let's start things off with damage. And damage is very important. It can be physical, it can be visual, and in the perfect world, it's both. But who has the best damage in all of sim racing? And the winner in this category was iRacing. And they won the category with 117 votes, or 27% of the people. The next category is tire model, and this includes the overall handling of the sim, the flex of the tire, flat spotting, anything that could be taken into consideration when building a tire model within the physics of our sims. And the winner here was rFactor 2, getting 166 votes, or 37% of the public opinion. And in the category of setups, and we're not talking about how many setups come in the sim, but more how much does a setup affect the car? How realistic are the setup changes when it comes to reacting with the car? And the winner of this category was iRacing, with 187 votes, or 42% of the people. When it comes to third-party support, this is sort of a newer thing in sim racing, but the ability to have add-ons or mods or apps, things that work with the sims but they come from a different company. Which sim incorporates or makes it easiest to use such mods? And the winner in this category was Assetto Corsa with 171 votes, or 39% of our opinions. Immersion is a word that is thrown around in sim racing often, and it can mean a great many things. But for me, immersion comes down to that atmosphere of being in the car, that feeling of really being within the sim, no longer feeling like you're playing a game. And this is a very important aspect of sim racing. When it comes to that immersion, that you feel like you're really doing it, Project Cars 2 was the winner. And they do the best job of doing that, and they got 139 votes, or 30% of our study to back it. Now, similar to immersion, but really focusing purely on the cockpit view, leaving out all that other stuff that makes up that being there. But when we specifically look at the view, the interior of the cars, which sim does this best? And in your voting, it was Assetto Corsa, winning 159 votes, or 35% of our voting. Triple screen support is something that not all sim racers need, just a certain amount of them. And it is another aspect of that being there or cockpit view that we're talking about. But when it comes to triple screen support, it comes down to bezel corrections, angle adjustments, making the changes to make it look just right. Which sim does that best? And in your voting, it was iRacing who clearly won the category, getting 234 votes or 54% of us. When it comes to racing, we all want to watch a good race. Now, when it comes to sim racing, or broadcasting sim racing, it's really important that the sim not only lets us view, but has tools built in to make broadcasting better. Camera angles, overlays that are better for the viewers, just that overall ability and ease to broadcast as though you're doing it on television. When it comes to that category, it was iRacing who won by a pretty high margin of 286 votes, or 64% of our opinions. We all like to race with our friends, and that takes us to multiplayer. When I think of multiplayer, yes, it's racing with your friends. It's the matchmaking systems, the ability to join a race with others. We could even be talking about endurance racing and swapping out drivers. When it comes to multiplayer, the sim that does this best was iRacing once again, and they won this category by a huge margin, getting 324 votes, or 74% of our total. Racing is a sport of rules. We could be talking about contact, we could be talking about corner cutting, or even jumping the starts. But having rules is a strict or an important part of racing in real life, and we want that in our sims as well. So which sim out there has the best rule package controlling the way the sim is operated by us users? And the winner in this category, as voted by you, was iRacing. And they got 273 votes, or 60% of our opinions. Bang for buck, and this has always been one of my favorite categories when defining sims. What do you get for your money? Are you going to constantly be reaching into your wallet? Sometimes you say you get what you pay for. Sometimes you just get ripped off. But it is one of the ways that we define our favorite sims. When it comes to bang for the buck, it was Assetto Corsa winning the category with 137 votes, or 30% of our totals. In sim racing, we don't have the same inputs delivered to us as a real-life driver. So we've invented various different tricks and tools within sims to help our awareness. One of those things are heads-up displays. This can give you critical information, things that a real driver might not necessarily have available to them, to add to your awareness within the sim. This is very important. When it comes to heads-up display, it was Assetto Corsa who won the category, getting 157 votes, or 35% of our poll. With sim racing being a difficult challenge, the built-in help within a sim can be a big benefit, especially for newer racers. So when it comes to guides, tutorials, driving school, anything that helps get you up to speed, which sim does this best? And in our voting, it was Project Cars 2 that won the category, earning 170, or 38% of the votes. With virtual reality being fairly new, it's something the sim companies are still adapting to, and we drivers, we're still adapting to it as well. But when it comes to VR, which sim implements or supports VR the best? In our voting, it was iRacing who narrowly won the category, getting 149 votes, or 34% of our poll. Racing is fun, and when you have a great moment, sometimes you want to relive it. So which sim actually does the best at giving you replay controls or allowing you to take that perfect photo on victory lane or crossing the finish line? When it comes to photo mode or replays, it was iRacing that won the category, getting 141 votes, or 31% of our opinions. Modding makes the world go round. Modding makes each sim better than it came out of the box. Modding often allows us to sidestep licenses or get around things that the sim companies themselves didn't want added in the sim, but with modding, we the people, we can do it ourselves. When it comes to modding, there is a new king in town, and it's Assetto Corsa, who narrowly beat out R Factor in this category. In total, 206 votes, or 45% of us, chose Assetto Corsa as having the most mods available for it. Adding mods to a sim can be a challenge sometimes. Tons of files to deal with, lots of directories to deal with, and each sim doing it slightly different. So which sim is the easiest? Which sim makes it so that the average guy can just add a mod to it with not too much trouble? And you, the people, voted on this one, and you said it was Assetto Corsa who does this best. And they got 255 or 56% of the votes. Growing our sport is important. With growth will come better sims. With growth will come better hardware and better drivers. With growth, we will finally see that pro rank of sim racing that we've all been dreaming of. So which sim is doing the best job of getting public attention? Which sim is doing the best to bring new sim racers into the market right now this year? And you, the people, or we, the people, we voted, and it was Project Cars 2 who narrowly beat out iRacing, but they got 124 votes, or 27% of us believe that they are doing the best job of this. Our sim racing hobby might seem like a game to others, but we all know the skill set required to be a good sim racer is very similar to that it takes to be a real life racer. It just doesn't come with the same rewards. Now we know the pro ranks of sim racing are coming, but which sim is already there? Which sim is leading the way and already has that professional aspect to it that makes it parallel to real life racing or doing the best job of this? And in our votes, it was iRacing who clearly is setting the way when it comes to professionalism. And in a landslide win, they got 341 votes, or 75% of our poll. With so many different wheels, pedals, peripherals on the market, and with each brand or each model having their own particular feel, it's important that a sim lets us really make adjustments and dial in our components to get the feel that we want or expect to get from them. So with them all being different and having to deal with so many, which sim allows the best controls, the best ability to make adjustments to get that exact feel that you want? And in this category, it was iRacing who won. And they got 155 votes, or 34% of our poll. And when it comes to so many components being available, it also comes down to outright support. There are some games that just don't support certain wheels for some reason or another. But when it comes to supporting the most amount of hardware out there, it was iRacing who got the most votes once again, getting 195 votes, or 43% of the margin. Now, graphics is actually a category that could be broken into mini categories. But when we're talking about like dirt flying, or smoke billowing, or solar rays coming down from the sky, adding that extra realism to our sims, when you look at that part of the graphics specifically, it was Project Cars 2 that won the votes. And 243 of us voted that way, or 53% of our overall opinions. When it comes to certain enhancements to a game, like weather for example, or having a wet track, not all sims even attempt this. But when you're going to have weather, it better not only be there visually, but you better feel it. It better actually have an effect on the car. A slick track better not yield the same kind of lap times as a dry track. Or hitting puddles better start making the car hydroplane or pulling in a certain direction. So when it comes to the effects of weather on the physics, the handling of the car, which sim did this best? And our votes were clear on this one. It was Project Cars 2. Project Cars 2 getting 243 votes, or 53% of our opinions. When it comes to weather, feeling it is one thing, but visually what we see is a whole different department. Which sim does the best when it comes to showing you raindrops, water running down the track, or puddles, or that overall look of a rainy day while driving the sim? In this category, once again, it was Project Cars 2 that won. Really locking up this category. When it comes to the visual side of weather, they got 354 votes, or a whopping 77% of our opinions. In sim racing, we are competing. We're putting our talents up against the talents of those out in the world to see where we stand. And it's important that the sim has a competition model built into it to allow for that. And not all sims even do this. But when it comes to scoring, timing, keeping points, having that kind of competitive structure, which sim does this best? And it's no surprise here, but it's iRacing that actually got the most votes. and it got 366 total, or 88% of us that feel that way. Henry Ford once said that racing was invented 5 minutes after the second car was built. So in other words, it's just a human nature to want to race. So when it comes to multiplayer, that ability to race against others, which sim gives the best multiplayer experience? The ability to challenge yourself against the world, race side by side, and have the best environment for it. And in our voting, it was iRacing that did this best. And they got 343 votes, or 74% of the margin. Sure, we like to race against each other, but sometimes we just want to pursue a career mode much more like a traditional video game. But sim companies don't think of themselves as being a traditional video game, and this topic isn't given much consideration by some, if at all by others. But a very good career mode can keep you going. It can add hours of additional entertainment to the sim all on your own. So which sim has the best career mode? And we the people, we voted on this one, and it was Project Cars 2 that won this category. And they got 137 of the total votes, or 30% of our poll. In a lot of cases, career mode is running against the AI, or the artificial intelligence, or the computer drivers. And having good AI is very important to a career mode in a sim. So which sim has the best computer drivers or artificial intelligence? R-Factor 2 won the category with 109 votes, or 24% of the margin. Force feedback is a very important part of modern sim racing. Not only is it responsible for telling you what the car is doing, but it's also going to add to the realism of the sim. It also is responsible for letting you know speed sensation and giving you an idea of the G-forces the car is under. So which sim currently has the best force feedback, or has that most natural feeling to it? Well, it was Assetto Corsa that won the category, gaining 128 votes, or 28% of our opinions. Fun factor is one of my favorite categories in simulation. In a nutshell, the fun factor can often tell you your favorite sim because it's the thing that sucks you in for hours and hours and keeps you compelled to keep playing or driving the sim. So which game currently has the most fun factor? Well, we the people, we voted, and it was iRacing. And they got 111 votes, or 24% of us felt that way. User interface, navigation, finding our way around a sim. As much as we want to drive, we do have to make adjustments to the sim, adjustments to graphics, wheel changes. Finding our way around a sim can be a challenge, and the easier it is, the better it is for all of us. So which sim has the best user interface? And we the people, we decided it was Project Cars 2. And they got 121 of the votes, or 26% of our poll, for having the best user interface. For our sims to truly be sims, these companies have to recreate cars and tracks to amazing detail. By definition alone, this is a critical part of sim racing. Now when it comes to the tracks specifically, which sim does the best job of recreating the tracks in accuracy and realism? And in our voting, it was iRacing. And they were the clear winner, receiving 311, or 67% of our votes. Variety is the spice of life, and in our sims, the spice of life is content. When it comes to having the most tracks available for you to race on, which sim does the best here? In our voting, it was iRacing, getting 156 votes, or 34% of the total. We talked about the importance of recreating cars and tracks, and when we're talking about modeling the cars, we're talking about the extreme amount of detail. This could be moving parts, every little thing they do to make it look more realistic on the track, the actual car modeling. It was Assetto Corsa that won the votes here, winning the category with 135 votes, or 29% of the margin, just narrowly beating out iRacing. We talked about variety being the spice of life. Well, then this flavor is the cars themselves. Which sim gives us the best selection? Maybe not the most, but the best selection of cars to choose from. Our voting says it was Project Cars 2. And they got a total of 142 votes, or 30% of our opinions. And now we are down to the big three categories, and these are the three categories that we really judge our sims by first. Sure, all the details, the sum of the parts, they are important, but it really starts with the big three, and the first one up is sounds. The sounds are critical to a sim. It is part of the immersion. It is part of what sucks us into the sims. It is critical that the sounds be great to tell us the input we need as a driver. Spiking RPMs, squealing tires, the sounds of where our opponents are all a big part of what makes a great sim. In the category of sounds, it was Race Room winning the category, getting 228 total votes, or 49% of our poll. What we see is what we like. The graphics of our sims are really the first thing that will either impress you or let you down about a sim. After all, we still are gamers playing in a virtual reality world, and the graphics are extremely important to the overall quality of a sim. So what sim has the best graphics? And in our voting, it was Project Cars 2 that has the best graphics, getting 232 votes, or 50% of the total votes in this category. And our final category is physics. Physics really are the core element of a sim. If you really define a simulation, the physics is what it's really about. It's how the car handles, it's how it reacts, it's the whole point and purpose of what we're doing. So what sim has the best physics? In our voting, the people have decided it is iRacing that has the best physics. They got 140 votes, or 30% of the margin. Assetto Corsa was not far behind with 120 or 26% of the margin. So there you have it, sim racing broken down into 38 different categories. And can you just imagine if we were to go back to the original point of all this, it was building the perfect sim, taking a slice of each pie. So if we took all 38 of these categories and built a sim around all of those things, can you imagine what that sim would be like to drive? And the great thing about it is, I think that's the sim that we'll be driving in 3 to 5 years as our sim continues to grow, as the manufacturers, the sim companies themselves continue to push each other, push themselves. Hopefully they'll take notice. If the sim companies look at our polls, maybe they're going to see that they're far behind in certain categories, and maybe there's something they could do about it, and that might make them better. Maybe they'll pay attention and listen to the public opinion poll of 2017. Over 470 of you voted, and this was a great poll. Again, it wasn't tribal answers, they were honest answers, and I could see by the way you guys voted on certain topics. Some of the results, they were a surprise to me, and some of them are exactly what you'd expect because maybe that's what the sim was built around to begin with. I had a ton of fun doing this. I had a fun time doing the original Sim Pizza poll. It just turned into a total nightmare, and that's what led to doing this much more scientific. Now, again, it started as a joke building the Sim Pizza, but it became a really good feel of where we are in sim racing. Looking at these results to me actually opened my eyes to a lot of sims, opened my eyes to how great the potential for a great perfect sim really could be. I'm not asking these companies to join forces, get together, and build the perfect sim. I want them to continue to push each other so that we always have that variety of sims to choose from. Again, I had a really fun time doing it. I want to thank you for taking the time to do 38 questions. It wasn't easy. I appreciate you doing the time. I appreciate the energy and the honesty that you put behind it. I think this has been a great poll, and again, we're going to do this next year. Now we're just going to call this the public opinion poll for sim racing software, and maybe we'll have to do something on the hardware side of things as well. Thanks again for being here. This is the Simpit. I'm Sean Cole, and I'll see you on the track.